There is no contradiction, according to me, in using digital technology to perceive and represent infinity. But we have to use it and to see it and to represent it within constraints, the 1 and the 2. If we are seeing it and using it in the 1, 2, 3 infinity, then we're going to have problems because the material world is limited.
Hello everyone, welcome to Green.io, the podcast for responsible technologists building a greener digital world, one bite at a time. Our guests from across the globe share insights, tools and alternative approaches enabling people within the tech sector and beyond to boost digital sustainability. Before we start, a quick note for my European-based listeners. You are invited to the Green.io conference in Paris on December the 8th for free. I partner with API Days to bring you an amazing lineup starting with Aurore Stéphant, Tristan Nitot, Theo Alves Da Costa, and all the teams involved in the 2023 Sustainable Digital Challenge. The link to register is in the episode notes. Our representation of the territory depends on our senses, our culture, the data we capture, but also the technical systems we choose. This is where cosmography, the graphic representation of the world, becomes essential to our existence. However, ecological disruption reflects a failure of our collective representation of the territory. This imbalance probably dates from the Neolithic Revolution 12,000 years ago. When we became sedentary, we built systems of exploitation and domination of a territory perceived as infinite. In 2023, we are still mainly guided by this archaic mindset. This Maxime Blondeau's quote has powerfully resonated with me when I first read it. Because this mindset also drives our understanding of digital technology, which are seen as infinite and limitless by default. Hence, the use of the words cloud, universe, metaverse, endless possibilities, or the quest for infinite double-digit growth. This verbatim speaks volume about our digital tech cosmology and should question ourselves, what could be a representation of digital technologies which enable a sustainable future for them and for humankind? I am a long-time fan of Maxime's work, from his LinkedIn daily post of beautiful maps to his course at the Paris Political Institute, Sciences Po Paris for my French listeners, which he decided to fully open source, as he did for the 40-plus conferences he gave on geography, technology, and attention economy. He's also not a stranger to entrepreneurship, having co-founded the SailCop startup. I hope he will join the growing community of the French podcasters soon. And today it's an honor to have him on our show to take a huge step back and reflect on our collective understanding of digital technology. Welcome, Maxime. Thank you for joining Green.io today.
Thank you, Gael. Very happy to be here.
Me as well. So, to put things on perspective, you post every day, including Sunday, on LinkedIn, a nice little text. I don't know how many. I think you're pretty close to hit the 1 million followers on LinkedIn, though that's just insane. And this regularity is just amazing. How do you find? I got it, like the blossoming and the richness of our world is a big source of inspiration. But how do you find the resources to produce qualitative content every day? I'm just amazed.
Well, I connect all my activities, the teaching, the entrepreneurship, the conference, the talks I give, and the LinkedIn post. And the result is that some content come to me. So almost every week, I have readers that say, I thought about you. Here is a subject that you could add to. So in the end, it's like things are coming to me. I'm doing curation, of course. I rewrite, etc. But it seems that it's easier and easier to find new subject because people want to share and they want also to help me to find the right subject. So in the end, I'm not alone to choose my subject every day, my daily topic.
The power of a community of committed people. That's one of explanation. Now, I'd like to ask you, maybe to set the stage, I would love to ask you a simple and very complicated question. What can anthropology bring to our understanding of digital technology?
I'm a tech anthropologist. That is to say that I use anthropology, human science, to explore the relationship, very ancient actually, relationship between the way we build technical systems and the way we think. That's what anthropology can add to the understanding of a technical system in general and the digital system in particular. So I have a course at Sciences Po, but also at in an engineering school called Mines Paris, PSR. It's one of the main engineering school in Paris, and in Sciences Po, my course is programming the world, and I study how we program. That is to say, how we pre-write technical structures, and how those technical structure program us in return, and how actually there is a link between how we define, design technical structure, infrastructure, and superstructure, and how it changes the way we develop perception, we develop attention to the world, because that's the place where technical systems and culture meet, and it creates a whole lot of belief systems, and that's what anthropology can bring to a better understanding of what technical and, in particular these days, digital systems do to the world.
And how massive is it, the disruption that digital technologies bring to the world? I mean, is it just an evolution of some set of existing technologies, or is it something comparable to the reinvention of printing, because the Chinese had already known how to print centuries before the Europeans, or even the alphabet? What kind of level of disruption we're talking about when we are talking about digital technologies?
Well, there is a British anthropologist called Jack Goody who was studying the effect of graphic systems on cultural mindset, let's say, but particularly by studying African population in the 70s that had at the time never seen any scriptures, written characters. They were living in orality. And he developed, by observing what it made to the culture, to the belief systems, to the way people were living and interacting with the world, he developed a theory on what he called mind technologies. Mind technologies are pretty much information technologies, but with certain characteristics. And he included language, for instance, writing, alphabet, printing, telecommunication, and we can also consider that digital systems, digital technologies are part of this mind technologies category. And what Jack Goody brought to the conversation is the fact that there is a correlation, a very narrow relationship between the effect of the arrival of such a mind technology and the way culture evolve and the way culture represent the world. And there are many, many stories, archetypal legends throughout the world that tell the story of this moment when a new lot of information suddenly arrived into a society because a new technology emerged, and it changed the way people see nature, for instance. And when you just take one of the most famous myths of Western culture, the Adam and Eve story, the fall of Eden, well, that's the story of what Jack Goody could call cognitive revolution, technical and cognitive revolution. That is to say that actually you can see that story as something that happened that changed the way you deal with knowledge and information, and that created this balance, a fall in the way you see the world, nature, and the balance of living things, and actually ecological, sustainable way of living the world. So anthropology can tell you that there is a very deep link between digital and green climate sustainable transition. From a very long time.
And did you already notice some trends in the way we represent the world with the arriving of digital technologies?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if it's the right expression in English, but I'm going to try. In French, there is that idea of volume géographique mental. So that would be the geographical mind volume, literal translation. I'm not sure it's good, but
what is it? The ability of information that you can gather in your head, the maximum amount of information, or is it something different?
Yeah, but it's not quantity. It's more related to space. For instance, our grandparents and the grandparents of our grandparents were living in a village. Maybe they had in mind the city and the valley and the mountains. And that was their world. Like, really, the representation of space, the idea they had of the space that constitutes their world was that. And beyond, there were just stories. They had no idea of, distances and even the names of the countries and the continents, etc. And nowadays, it's totally changed. We can see pictures on social media of almost every places in the world. We can measure distance and times on Google Maps, or we have, thanks to the new digital technology, our generation, and also new mobility, transportation, and new sources of information, a very different comprehension of distances and geographical perception of the world. And it also changes the way we as humans see the world as a planet. Because as you may know, the first picture of planet Earth is quite recent. It's 72. It's called Blue Marble. And everything that the digital technologies can bring in terms of imagery, in terms of picturing the world, is really changing our representation. And it can go to the right or the wrong side of things.
And actually, I've heard that people experiencing this out of space experience of watching the planet Earth, beautiful blue planet Earth, but also super fragile once you start to realize the magnitude of things and how small we are. It's got a name. I think
It's called the overview effect.
Thank you.
Mm.
Is it the kind of example that highlights what you've just said, that it changes completely the perception? And usually people get very, very into sustainability after that.
Yes, it is. The overview effect would be one of the most distant and global way of representing that idea that our perception of the world can change and it can create emotion and psychological changes. But imagine that this effect, that is a psychiatric and psychological effect, happens, but on a daily basis, and on the way we represent time and space, distances, and what the world is. And also, that's also why I'm a tech anthropologist by I don't know, academically speaking, but what I'm doing on LinkedIn, posting and also talking, is more cosmology. That is to say, our thought system, the way we represent the world as it is. And cosmology is a word academically that is used to describe our understanding of space, like far and distant universe. But actually, what I'm interested in is the way our immediate cosmology is changing nowadays. That is to say, the way we represent the world, but the close world, like the world around our feet, the world, the plant, the vegetal, the animal world around our village, our house, our home. And it's an infinite universe as well. And it's changing very quickly these days. I mean, in the last 30, 40 years, the representation, the way we picture the world is really changing. And it can be an opportunity if we decide to direct that new look at things into the right direction. And it can be a threat if we are preventing ourselves to understand better and to perceive better the world and what is essential to our survival, for instance.
And what are the main trends in this representation of our world which has changed that much in the last 30, 40 years, as you said? Can you, I know it will be oversimplifying, but can you try maybe to tell us, top 3 or top 5 massive changes which are already happening?
Okay. The first transformation would be the way we collect data. So right now we are collecting a huge amount of data on the world. I mean, it's never been that range before. So thanks to the digital system that are mine technologies, but information systems mostly, firstly, we are able now to collect a huge amount of data. That data can be used for science, Earth comprehension of natural Earth science, etc. But that huge amount of data can also be used by business companies. Also, it can be used by governments, public policies. And actually, we have now a very deep, profound transformation on the way we perceive the world as organizations, as scientists, as business leaders, as government leaders doing public policy. So I would say the first change right now is the amount of data and what we are or will be able to do with it. Second would be more something related to imagery. So not only figures, numbers, or data, quantitative information, but more the quality of the things we can see. And it's related to media, so social media, but also TV and movies and photo. I don't know, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., or in China, WeChat, and all those social media are shaping a new image of the world by letting us exchange billions of pictures and image every day. It's so we are creating belief system by exchanging a lot of pictures of the world.
And what could be an example of a new belief that has been created via Instagram or WeChat?
It's not created by; it's more amplified, and its effect has been amplified. I don't know. There are many. There are good representation. There are errors as well. For instance, flat Earth representation. Flat Earth representation. I mean, right now you have this International Flat Earth Society based in the US, but in France, for instance, that is a small country, there are between 8 to 10% of the population that believe in the flat Earth representation. Why? Because social media and digital systems are promoting a certain picture, so a certain representation of the world. Right now, we are in a cosmographical revolution. That is to say, everything is changing, and we are in the eye of a hurricane, and it could go to the wrong direction. And for instance, the flat Earth belief, it's not something that is just funny. It's something that is really deep. And that's one example on how digital media right now can produce belief system in picturing the world differently. But we could talk about climate belief, climate skepticism, eco-deny belief systems that is related to the way we are picturing the world. And the third one that I wanted to mention would be more related to what we could call indicators or measurement of our impact, for instance. Companies right now want to understand better how the changes in the world, climate change, biodiversity, water consumption, resources, how it will impact their businesses. And right now, thanks to new technological systems, infrastructure, digital infrastructure, for instance, we can implement these measurements into our business models and take these decisions accordingly. And that's new.
Okay, fair enough. The three big trends. I got it. The amount of data, the way we collect data, the ability to measure or impact. I remember that in one of your conference, you kind of illustrated our collective reaction, with two caricatures who are Homo Deus and Homo Humilis. And if I understood it well, it was the reaction to this mind revolution that we are in between and how people position themselves. Could you tell us a bit more about these two representations?
Yeah, that is more the belief systems that could be emerging right now when we are collectively facing double crises. One, a crisis of information, and two, a crisis of space and time, ecological crisis, but also identitary crisis, the way we relate to the place where we live. And facing that huge challenge, some people believe that technology will solve the problem. And that if we are, I don't know, building the right technical systems, we can solve any problems, including death. And we are entering a field, a space that is really a belief system close to religious belief. And even sometimes it becomes a cult. It becomes indoctrination, and it can go very far. And that is the idea of Homo Deus. So the idea that thanks to technical power, we can do anything, including killing death, you know?
Which has been structuring our society since we exist on Earth, that things are finite.
Not since we exist. I mean, in the last 12,000 years. I mean, I can go back to that subject, but there are different periods in our in human evolution, as I see it. So 3 or 4 periods. And in the last 12,000 years, yes, we have been developing the Homo Deus point of view. That is to say, thanks to technical system, agriculture, cities, transportation, and now digital media and digital infrastructure, the ability to do anything in an unlimited world.
And what were these belief system before? Like,
oh, okay. So before the Neolithic, so that happened 12,000 years ago, we were gather and hunter gatherer, living in a world that would provide meat and fruits, and it's in I don't know between 40 and 60,000 years, 2 or 3 ice ages. We were living that way, and before we were living in a world with no complex language, so we were really integrated as a human population into the animal sphere. Then we developed language, complex language, and that's the moment when Homo sapiens conquered the whole planet. So it's funny to understand that we developed complex language at the same moment we conquered the world. Homo sapiens went out of Africa and conquered all continents, probably because we developed a certain way of communicating, and it changed radically the way we saw the world. We became the main predator on Earth in the last 50,000 years.
But is it related to Hariri's view on the fact that sapiens managed to kill or actually other humans on planet Earth as well, because they created complex belief system that basically made them able to stick at 1, 2, or 3, or 400 people in the same room, whether apes or even Neanderthal, we will never be able to do so. And that collectively we were stronger because we were believing to things, that the ability to believe in things were our
Yeah,
superpower.
exactly. I call the cognitive revolution this moment when we invented the complex language, and that's why he say what makes us special as sapiens is our ability to tell stories. That's his point of view, and he studied the way, as an historian, he studied the way stories built social, but also technical and in the end biological structure that let us conquer the world in the last 50,000 years. So, according to me, there are three main periods. First, like the deep Paleolithic, when we were really integrated into nature. Then we developed complex language, and we became the first predator on Earth, conquering the whole planet. And then you have the Neolithic Revolution, who are not anymore taking everything the world has to give. We became producers. We became able to use technical systems like agriculture, cities, etc., to produce ourselves what we need out of the world. So suddenly the world became like a huge mine. We can mine to gather, accumulate wealth and everything we desire. And actually, what I'm saying is that we are still in the Neolithic period and we have to reach a new age.
With new tools. You mean we are still in the Neolithic period, but with tools that are more and more powerful?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. First, we developed agricultural basic rudimentary tools 12,000 years ago. Then we developed cities, bridges. We developed military tools, and then at the Renaissance, thanks to the science revolution, we, entered the period we call humanism. But humanism is exactly the same process that started at the Neolithic. That is to say, that idea of human emancipation from the natural constraint, in a way. Except we have more and more technical power, more and more means, and we are still in that idea that we are exploiting, representing a world, land, space, and time that we can exploit, that we can dig in a way, accumulate things from it, and we perceive the world as unlimited. And that is the Neolithic mindset, according to me, and we are still in it, and we need to move forward to a next stage, post Neolithic. That is not to say we should unplug all technology and no, it's more that we should think about use of technical systems that is very different because we have a new representation of space and time, of land and territory, and that would let us enter a new belief system that is more directed to care, maintenance, and balance in our relationship with the world.
But that's very interesting because the latest super powerful tool that we've developed is obviously digital technologies. And the representation we have for our digital world is infinite and endless. So, how would we be able to move toward this post Neolithic vision while in the same times we are double betting on the very last technology, which is digital technology, that map the world as something potentially infinite? We disconnected the materiality of our surrounding with something that is now purely virtual. I know that it's not truly virtual because it's grounded in materiality via the resources it needs to get powered and built. But the way we represent our digital world is infinite. So don't you see a discrepancy here?
Well, that's where it becomes mystical. it's our relationship to infinity. In mathematics, there is character that is called Aleph. That is the first letter in Hebrew, but also in Arabic, Aleph, and it's very close to the alpha, Greek alpha, and actually that's the first letter of the first alphabet that has been invented by Phoenician 3,000 years ago on the shore of Lebanon. And that letter represents in mathematics infinity within finity. So that is to say, we are representing the world right now with 1, 2, 3, 4, infinity. But if you just take 1 to 2, there is infinity within, between 1 and 2. And there is no contradiction, according to me, in using digital technology to perceive and represent infinity. But we have to use it and to see it and to represent it within constraints, the 1 and the 2. If we are seeing it and using it in the 1, 2, 3 infinity, then we're going to have problems because the material world, is limited. But if we use digital technology as a way to touch infinity, but within 1 and 2, then it works. And that is called Aleph. That's in mathematics, the amount of numbers that are infinite within two nombre entier. So in English, that would be I don't know, numbers like 1 and 2, 3, 4, but the in between. And that's interesting because that's poetry. What is poetry than just making beautiful things with strict constraints, with limits? And limit can help you make beautiful things and infinite creativity. So there is a paradox, but a paradox that is perfectly clear to me and that we can use to build a world that we want to live in. That's mystical, I told you.
But that's very interesting, Boy. This is the way you would reincorporate the materiality and the resource shortage that we are already facing and that we will face more and more in the future versus the overexpanding immateriality of our digital world.
Yeah, that's a little bit the same idea. Yesterday night, I was invited to talk about growth, post-growth economics. Can we move forward from that idea of growth? And is it possible? And what is growth? And etc. Well, the way I answer it is to use a very simple analogy that is human body growth. I mean, from a certain point, we don't want to grow more, it's not good to grow more, but we are growing still in different way. I mean, when you reach 20 years old, you do not grow physically with your body anymore, but you grow in your mind, you grow in your relationship, in the way you are, I don't know, trying to reach wisdom or caring for people around you. So that's a type of growth. That's another way of growing, and that's that idea of reaching creativity and infinity within new constraints that are not a bad thing at all. I mean, it's a good thing actually that we do not keep growing infinitely, as body, and that's a little bit the same. And that's according to me a nice way to say that we have to be aware of the moments when physically we should not grow anymore, and that we should turn our growth into something else that has more value.
Do you believe that we'll be able to spot the moment we need to stop growing?
I believe that we are right now reaching the tipping point in terms of awareness of limitedness of our world. And that's a very, very good thing. That's why I think we are living an extraordinary and fascinating and exciting period that is a cosmological revolution comparable to the main one that occurred in human history, that is the Neolithic Revolution or the language revolution. And what is it exactly, this cosmological revolution? Well, precisely what I was saying before. the awareness of being in a limited physical body, planet Earth. And that's beautiful because it would let us build, develop creativity in a different way.
That's very, very, very interesting. But I've got the same feeling. We talked a lot about digital technology and the way it shapes our representation. I remember that in one of your conference, you made an example of how the Inuit would represent the world that was different between summertime and wintertime. So I think it was a good illustration that the way we represent the world could dramatically shift. Like in summertime, it's almost a free lunch and you can travel for how long and pretty much whatever you want. And in wintertime, you're under very strict social rules and your surrounding is reduced to a few kilometers. Um, am I quoting you or explaining your thought well here, or not that much?
Yeah, well, that's how anthropology studied the Inuit population in the Great North, in North Canada. Indeed, that's a population that is nomadic in summer, so really, traveling all the time, and sedentary in winter. So that's probably why I mentioned those observations. But everybody actually, we have our own belief systems, our own representation of the world. I mean, French people have their own conception, philosophy of space and time, and especially when it's related to the land. American people have their own representation and conception and philosophy of the land. And in America, you have the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, and they don't have. So our representation of the world is very cultural, but it's also very technical, because what I'm interested in is how technical systems create culture. Because in anthropology, we know that every technical system changed our perception of space and time, from the fire to ChatGPT, and it creates a new social and cultural order. The question is, do we take that in account first? I mean, mostly, in our liberal democratic society, we don't. We don't really. In authoritarian countries like China or Russia, they do. They really want to use technical system in order to produce cultural and social order, because they know it works that way. So the question is, how do we direct, govern, the effect of this huge, massive technical infrastructure that has an effect on culture, that has an effect on our belief system, on our minds, in a way that is compatible with our values, with our education culture, political convictions. And that's a very, very concrete problem that is related to the cosmological revolution we are talking about. And what I want to add in this conversation is, how do we perceive the world? Well, according to me, there are three main ways of perceiving the world. First is information. We get information from the world, and technical systems, digital systems, science help us collecting knowledge about the world. And that's the first way we comprehend what's around us. The second one would be more the stories we tell. So belief systems based on stories, on the power of creativity in terms of what we share in terms of stories. And it's related to communication. And when you are a company or when you are government, you tell stories a lot internally and externally. And that creates a certain way of comprehending the world that surrounds us. And thirdly, you have the direct experience of the world, senses, sensoriality, the hot, the cold, the light, the dark. And we are living in a world, because of the technical structure that surrounds us, of digital technology, that is preventing us more and more from feeling the world. So the way we feel the world with our bodies has an effect on the way we are building the world with our mind. So there is a connection between our direct experience of the world physically and the stories we tell and the information we collect. And all that is the way we we picture the world. And right now, we have to be very careful on the direction we are collectively choosing in terms of cosmography, that is to say, in terms of representation of what the world is and what we want to do to it, and what is our mission and purpose and role and place as human beings in the planet.
I used to see attention as a moral question. Like you don't have the right to steal attention from people. And you're the first one who kind of shifted my perspective at no, but this is a resources like water, clean water, air, etc. It's actually the main resources that help sapiens, as we discussed earlier, to become the dominant species on Earth. It's our capacity to focus, to create stories, and that is powered by attention. And that attention is a resource that should be carefully curated rather than just something on a moral stance.
And my message, if I want to make of my message one sentence, it would be our attention resources are limited and we have to direct them as much as possible towards the world itself. So we have to comprehend, we have to focus on the world, which is quite complicated to focus on everything. But compared to just looking at ourselves and, being disconnected from the world by creating digital connections that are, not sustainable because they are not connected to material reality, we have to focus, on the contrary, on what is material reality. And what is material reality is life itself, animals, vegetables, the water resources, the air, the ocean, the world itself. And I'm not saying that we should only think about ecology, natural ecosystems, but it's our interest as human to heal our relation to the world.
That's kind of a positive message. And I'm going to jump to make an easy transition for an easy conclusion, which is if you had to pick one piece of good news which made you optimistic recently about this ability, as you described, to connect a bit more with the world, pay attention to the world, and make it a more sustainable place to live, what will be the news that you would choose?
I think I would choose the trend that we are observing in terms of accountancy, which is a very specific and technical subject, but it's very related to everything we've said. Accountancy is a very, I don't know, some find it boring, but actually it's crucial in the way we interact with the world because it's the way we, I don't know, pay attention to anything by integrating numbers, quantities into actions and decisions. And right now, we're observing on a planetary level, especially European one, because it started in Europe, but it's a global conversation right now. Reflection on how we could count things and how we could be accountable for things. And accountancy is a way to measure the activity of a business, but it's also a way, or it could be a way, and it will be a way of measuring impact and also measuring risks. And right now, if we want to assess risks and measure impact properly, we have to focus on the world itself and what we are doing to the world. So according to me, the first steps we are observing right now, we are taking right now in terms of accountancy, could be in the next years door to a change in perception. And I'm really optimistic when it's related to that particular field. And for me, that's really a good news and a good trend. And we'll see what's happening in the next days and weeks, because there is an accountancy war right now. And I really consider it's a critical decision we are going to make in the next days and months.
Yeah, double materiality or not.
Exactly.
You know, when you start saying, by the way, I'm going to talk about accountants, and that's a very positive trend, I felt suddenly way less lonely. So thanks a lot for that, Maxime.
You're welcome.
And thanks a lot for joining the podcast. That was great. I know that you've got a crazy agenda. I hope that you will not get kicked out of your hotel room and that your conference tonight will be awesome. I strongly suggest every French speaker, even if he's not or she's not a native one, to follow you on LinkedIn, because your posts are beautiful and they're always kind of, mind-blowing or opening the chakra, as I like to say. And I think that for our non-French native speaker, you've got an announcement to make.
Yeah, well, it's a very simple announcement. It's just that I've decided to translate all my LinkedIn posts in English, because I received many demands from people not speaking French, and so I decided that next January I will translate everything and post everything every day in English. So if you're an English speaker, please welcome. I mean, to read and see what I'm sharing every day.
So from 100,000 followers on LinkedIn to 1 million in 2024, you could do it.
We'll see.
Thanks a lot, Maxime, for joining the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this Green.io episode. The references we discussed in the episode, as well as Maxime's courses, will be put in the show notes. Stay tuned. In 2 weeks' time, we will talk about the carbon footprint of digital marketing and how to reduce it with two experts, Audrey D'Antoni, co-founder of Impact Plus, and Darmouy Gilles, Criteo's CTO. And there is a lot of carbon involved and a lot of actions which could be taken to reduce it. Stay tuned. Before you leave, the small message from our sponsor. No, I'm kidding. Green.io is a free and independent podcast, and I need your help to keep it that way. I give online and on-site conferences and facilitate workshops about climate change and digital sustainability, so do get in touch if that interests you. It's a good way to allow me to keep investing in the podcast. You can also support us by spreading the word. Rate the podcast 5 stars on Apple and Spotify, leave a review, share an episode on social media or directly with a relative. It means a lot to us. Us being me, but also Tani Levitt, our amazing podcast producer, and Gilles Tellier, our amazing podcast curator. And stay tuned by subscribing to Green.io on your favorite podcast platform or via the Green.io mailing list. The link is in the episode notes, but you already know the drill. Every 2 weeks, you will get more insights and premium content to help you, the responsible technologists scattered all over the world, build a greener digital world.
One bite at a time.